It was hard to breathe too, right? Or
well, I managed to stay away from the wave of smoke, so from that perspective, I guess I did fairly well. But there were a lot of people running, and it seemed as I walked uptown, the further uptown I got, the less chaotic the situation was.
Were you able to talk to some of those people there that were running? Did you stop it? Were you able to stop it?
I did. In fact, I spoke to one gentleman who was on a ferry coming down the Hudson as number one was hit. And
what did he say?
Well, he was actually reading his paper and heard it and looked up and said that at that point the ferry, which was supposed to stop at the World Financial Center, just kept right on going and stopped elsewhere downtown. But there was a lot of chaos and concern aboard the boat because people didn't know at that point what was going on.
Now, on another note, trading, as you know, has halted on Wall Street. And there are a number of investment companies that are located right down in that area, of course. What is the status now as far as tomorrow? Do you have any information, since that is your line of work?
I've heard nothing specifically other than the fact that the New York Stock Exchange is holding a conference call later on this afternoon. Pure speculation on my part, cannot imagine, just in terms of the logistics of getting people in and out of downtown Manhattan, that they can open up, certainly not tomorrow.
They've talked about how other buildings, I mean, the mayor was saying it's still unclear what other nearby buildings, business offices, investment firms were racked by this.
And there were plenty of investment firms in the Trade Center itself that had offices that were clearly destroyed today. It's surreal. You look at the pictures and
you can't believe it.
I was in the building at 8:35 getting off the train, walking through, and
incredible. Fortunately, you are here to talk to us today. I'm sure you managed to get to a telephone to call somebody at home, let people know you were okay.
My wife was quite upset. She would rather that I be there than here, but
we appreciate
there's no moving out of New York at this point.
Okay, Larry Kofsky, CBSMarketWatch.com, eyewitness, and you lived it, and you're here to talk about it. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Numbers of injuries and deaths are still being counted. It will be some time before we know the full impact of this, although the mayor saying at least 2,100 wounded, 600 sent to area hospitals as they continue to work. You know, these pictures we're showing you now are from this morning, at least these right here, but the work continues ferociously downtown as the smoke, as you're seeing a live picture of what is left of the World Trade Center. We will all have to change our view as we look at the southern tip of Manhattan. We see Lady Liberty off there, a tiny little island there on the right as she stands there in her harbor that has been so very hurt today on this tragic day in American history, and no Twin Towers there to see anymore. But the smoke continues.
And we had mentioned earlier, Dana, of course, that a lot of people are still unaccounted for. That is the job underhand right now. Officials believe that about 10,000 people were inside the Twin Towers this morning at the time of the attack. Of course, there were numerous people on the ground, hundreds of people, including police and firefighters. We have just gotten word, we were talking to Larry Kofsky, Wall Street will be closed tomorrow, the NASDAQ, the American Stock Exchange, and the New York Stock Exchange. That's the latest we have on Wall Street.
Let's check with Todd McDermott. He's in our information center with some late information. Todd.
Dana, Ernie, I was struck by a phone call I got from my own mother, thinking that she didn't know whether I was okay, whether the family was okay. It's important tonight that you get a hold of your family, and obviously you get home to your family. We have some information from here in the Information Center on how to get home tonight. I know you're going to want to hug your kids and your spouse as well. First of all, 7 subway service, the number 7 line, that line has resumed service, as have all other lettered subway lines. Again, all lettered service has been restored if you need to get home tonight. And again, this is about the time many people will be heading home. That was restored earlier today. Now, only emergency vehicles are being allowed into Manhattan at this time. It's important to note, if you're trying to get into Manhattan to see a loved one, to get home, you won't be able to. Only emergency vehicles are allowed in. Penn Station closed until further notice. Again, the Penn Station's been closed most of the day now and will not reopen anytime in the foreseeable future. Of course, we'll keep you updated on that. Also, New York City buses are operating. If you get out on the street, you will see the buses in service. No fares are being collected. It's a good way to get home as well. Grand Central Station is open, offering just the limited service. Again, limited outbound Metro North service. Again, no fares being collected. Now, this is from MetroCommute.com. The New Jersey commute, complicated today, obviously, for quite a while. The tunnels, bridges closed. Now, New Jersey roadways affected by security measures. I-80 eastbound, I-95 northbound, that traffic being diverted in Bergen County from the George Washington Bridge area. I-80 is closed eastbound from Saddlebrook Road. You can expect delays in downtown Newark as well. I also want to give you a look now, as we again look at the devastation, at some of the other things happening around the country. Primarily, I want to take you to Florida. This is a scene you may not have seen earlier, but we did talk about it earlier today. Among the places evacuated, Walt Disney World in Florida. If we could take you there to that in just a moment, you will see that is one of the many places that was evacuated. Not only the Sears Tower in Chicago, Los Angeles on full alert, many other the areas in Seattle, anywhere there was a large building, there was a shutdown and evacuation. I want to show you now, if I can, though, what Walt Disney World in Florida looked like at the moment they began to evacuate people from there. There it is, buses coming out. If you've ever been there, you know, Walt Disney World is basically a compound set off by highways, and there are several roads in, several roads out, can be controlled. People walking out, taking trams out, taking buses out. One of the many areas evacuated, as well as obviously all the major government buildings in Washington. Some of those evacuated before the Pentagon was struck today, others afterwards. Again, that is what you're seeing, though, in Florida. Walt Disney World among the places evacuated today in anticipation of further terrorist attacks. Also, I'm told that just a short time ago we saw a police escort here in Manhattan for trucks transporting blood to area hospitals. Again, St. Vincent's has become ground zero, but many of the hospitals, Bellevue also, and many other hospitals treating the wounded, the injured, the critically injured. Surgery, a requirement as well for many of the people. We don't have a count on how many have been injured, how many will require treatment. Mayor Giuliani says it may be days before we have an exact count on those dead and those injured in this tragedy here in New York alone, let alone at the Pentagon in Washington. But we did see that trucks transporting blood to local hospitals. Also, as Ernie mentioned, the stock market, Wall Street closed today. Many other closings, obviously, to follow as the mayor assures New Yorkers, don't be frightened, continue to cooperate, but there is a long haul here to get back to normal from where we started today at about 8:48. Ernie, Dana, back to you.
Todd, thank you so much. Along with those hospitals who are actually at one point also put out the call for doctors and nurses who might be able to help. The blood center locations, 310 East 67th Street, 153 East 53rd Street, the Citicorp Center there, and not too far from us, 150 Amsterdam Avenue. And as our reporters have said, the turnout has been incredible because that's what we do here in New York. So be patient. You might even be given a card, a number, time to come back and give blood at a later date.
Okay, Dana, we have a guest in the studio. His name is Micha Halpern. He happens to be a political commentator from Jerusalem who just happened to be in New York when this all happened. Of course, this is an amazing story. You have so much insight here. What do you think happened here?
Well, I can't say who did it, and I don't think anyone at this stage can say. We can have guesses as to who perpetrated this dastardly deed. What I can say is, from the point of view of the terrorist, it was a tremendous success. The terrorists...
How do they pull something like that off? You were talking earlier about how it takes so much coordination, so many different pieces to make something like this happen. Can you describe the mindset and how that organization works?
Exactly. In order for one act like this to happen, tens of people have to be involved in order to coordinate places, positions, activities, explosives, weapons, everything else. In order to get simultaneous deeds like this to happen, many, many more people had to be in the works. And as a result, you have them also not just coming in New York, you've got it elsewhere. So you've got a huge terrorist unit working. So
you have a very diverse group of people involved?
Right, not just in terms of intelligence, but also in terms of operations, in terms of gathering information, as well as in terms of bringing stuff. If one link would have fallen, the entire act might not have succeeded.
Which, from their eyes, the person who was at the controls, because many of the stories I've read have said the pilots were not the American Airlines pilots at the plane, at the controls there. Most likely, it was a very skilled hijacker or someone who got their way to the cockpit chair.
If indeed that happened, yes.
We don't know that for sure.
We have no idea. But what I can say, from the point of view of the terrorist, their objective is to frighten all of us, to make us afraid. But the reality is we can't be afraid. The reality is that from their point of view, they're martyrs. From our point of view, they're suicide terrorists. A martyr theologically is a positive thing, a warrior for a cause. A suicide person should be shunned, and indeed they are suicide terrorists and not martyrs. In their perspective, and from the perspective of politically as well as theologically from their perspective, they're respected by their families. They're embraced by their environs. Their leaders even support them, if not passively, then actively. And now we have to look at the opposite. We have to see it for what it is. The destruction of innocent human life.
I would be interested in your take, Mr. Halpern. We heard Yasser Arafat today condemn what happened here in New York. At the same time, we've also seen celebrations in Palestine. Give us your view as how that works.
Well, I think there are several things important to recognize here. First, everyone who claims responsibility might not be responsible, and everyone who denies responsibility might not be irresponsible.